So Fable 5 was available to the public for, I think, around 3 days before Anthropic was forced to take it down. And I'll get into that whole situation in a bit. But first of all, I just want to say that I I had access in those 3 days, and I used Fable, and which, by the way, of course, is a consumer, quote unquote, consumer version of Mythos, but made in a way that was supposedly more safe, had more limitations and restrictions, which is why they could release it to the public. But I had access for those 3 days, and I of course regret now that I didn't use it more. But I did get to spend time with it and use Fable on some projects, and I will say that it really felt different. Like, you could really tell that it was a superior model. So obviously I kind of miss it. I feel like it was one of the first glimpses, like one of the first views I felt, at least, towards AGI. I'm not saying it's AGI. I think we're still quite a bit from that, but I guess it felt so advanced and so capable that it's the first kind of mini view you get into a world with AGI, where you have AI that can essentially take care of anything that an expert human being in essentially all areas would be able to do. And that felt really magical for those 3 days. So of course it was really sad when I saw the announcement on X from Anthropic that they were forced to take it down for all non-US citizens because of an export restriction mandated by the US government. But in practice, that of course meant that they had to take it down for everyone, at least initially, because I guess because it's just almost impossible to be sure to comply to that, like who's US citizen, who's not, especially since it also involved US citizens within America and even within Anthropic itself. So employees that are non-US citizens would be restricted from accessing the model they have potentially worked on themselves. So at least for the time being, it's unavailable for everyone. And I think it was because quite odd, actually, that the CEO of Amazon reported a jailbreak that either he or one of his employees had found in Fable 5. They have reported that to the government, causing the government to take quite drastic, I would say, action, and quite immediate action for shutting down Fable 5, even if it wasn't really necessary, because, as Anthropic has argued, it's not really a general purpose jailbreak. It was a very specific jailbreak, which is expected, and which can basically, any model can be jailbroken, at least in specific areas. So it wasn't really an issue, but there is a bit of history between the US government and Anthropic, so perhaps that played in. But now the rumors I'm hearing is that there is potentially some sort of resolution. It could just be rumors. I don't think anything is confirmed yet, but there could be a resolution soon. So let's hope for that. And even when you watch this video, perhaps the model is already available again. I'm not sure. But it's all actually also not what I want to discuss in this video, because I think what this shows, this whole situation, what it shows is the vulnerability of everything we know when it comes to AI, once governments can suddenly interfere with what's available and who gets access to which models. I could fear that we're nearing the end of this this era where consumers have access to frontier, state-of-the-art models at the same time that anyone else does. If we get to a world where consumers won't have access, I do find that thought kind of scary, because who gets to decide who has access to intelligence? Who gets to decide who will be competitive, and at which levels will it be? Will it be at the population level? Will it be across nation borders? Who knows? I mean, there is the one scenario where the US government, for instance, would restrict frontier models to everyone, at least until they've used them internally first, which would then also include US citizens. And of course, that's scary in itself, because then the government suddenly has a lot of power over regular people and even companies. But the scenario I'm actually more worried about as a European, as a non-US citizen, but also just in general for the world, is if we are looking into this scenario where the US would see, or potentially China in the future as well, that they would see AI as such a strategic asset that there would actually be incentive to keeping access to their own citizens, like US citizens, for instance, meaning that that foreigners perhaps wouldn't get immediate access to frontier models. And obviously, I would be against that, but I'm not really blaming the US in this situation, because I can understand that there could be strategic thinking behind this. I always think there should be freedom, and that everyone should get access, at least in the age of the internet and now AI, where things get way more connected. But ultimately, I respect the great US companies that built this and pioneered this technology. And ultimately, you could argue that it would be strange if the US government would interfere with private companies, but ultimately it's up to them to decide. What I'm really actually mad about is the European Union and the lack of urgency in Europe. I've been worried about Europe, and especially the bureaucracy from the European Union, for many years now. I've been a critic of the EU and the way the system works, almost as long as I can remember. And I feel like it has always been urgent, and there's never been any urgency. But I feel like with this whole Fable 5 case, it has accelerated in a way that I didn't even imagine or predict. But the truly scary part is that I don't even feel any urgency from the European politicians at this point. At least I haven't heard of anything. But what happened here should basically cause all alarm bells to ring in Brussels. I don't know if it has. Maybe it has behind closed doors. I'm not sure, but I don't think so, because I don't honestly think they know or understand what's going on. I don't think they understand the weird nature of exponentiality and how things can suddenly change in no time. I don't think they understand that. They've been in this bubble where they look at themselves in the mirror and see that, oh, they are so good and we are so competitive. But in reality, we're not. We're really falling behind in Europe, and it's a big reason, I would say, is this complete obsession with regulation, bureaucracy, weird rules that don't make, quite frankly, that don't make so much sense. I've talked a lot about the cookie banners that waste 500 million 500 million hours per year among Europeans. That's a lot of time that goes into just clicking a button where you don't even know what you're saying yes or no to. But that's, I always use it because it's such an illustrative example. Of course, that's not the biggest problem in Europe. There are many problems, but I just think that it. I guess I always thought that eventually Europe would realize that this path we are on with draconian regulation is ultimately not the right one, and we would change course. But the problem is with AI, things will move so incredibly fast and very suddenly. And I feel like with the whole Mythos Fable thing, we're kind of entering that phase where everything will start accelerating. And once things accelerate, I think it's very, very difficult to catch up, because so many things are preventing like so much regulation is preventing European businesses from growing, from thriving, and now we have all this anti-American, like we need European digital sovereignty and independence, and that's all great. But the problem is, like, we can change from Microsoft and all the American tech companies as much as we want, but we don't have any alternatives. Of course, there are some European alternatives. I think they just released, call it EU Office or something, but the thing is, they're just not great. At least I don't think so. I mean, maybe EU Office, I don't know, because Office is quite so anyone could probably vibe code or it's like an Office suite at this point. But the point is, European businesses cannot just change to Mistral AI. I think they call it Vibe now or something. They cannot just change to that because it's so much behind. It's years behind, and that's like decades in the world of AI. It's not a frontier model. No one can be competitive if they rely on Mistral when they could have had Anthropic's Fable 5 or even Opus 4.8. So that's the whole problem. We shouldn't focus on this European digital sovereignty because we're mad at the Americans or the Chinese or whatever. We should focus on building state-of-the-art global products whose main features are not GDPR compliance or AI Act compliance or Digital Services Act compliance. We should build products that are state-of-the-art and that people globally want to use because they are state-of-the-art. And that's what they don't realize, because we cannot be competitive in a world where we have this moral sort of thinking that, we need to use European alternatives because we're sovereign and we don't want to support, I don't know, Musk or something, even though he's probably the greatest entrepreneur of our time. But this kind of like hate is just growing in Europe, and I think it's ridiculous. I think we are facing probably the most interesting period of humanity. Also, probably one of the most risky and most consequential. But regardless, we're entering the phase of technology that we have never experienced before, exponentially advancing artificial intelligence. Why are they not trying to create more optimism, excitement? Like, tell people that we should go and build the future together and get rid of all the crazy regulation that makes no sense. Get rid of that and have some sensible, safety-focused regulation that's just very basic. But if you cannot build a product without reading through like 1,000 different paragraphs and acts, and you risk getting fined for just the slightest mishap, then nothing is going to happen. And we cannot have GDPR compliance as the main features of our products, because Europeans will not be able to be competitive in a world where we cannot figure out how to scale our products, how to make our products truly good, frontier, state-of-the-art. And that's what I fear. I fear that at some point, the US or even China, I know Chinese models are usually open source, but who knows, like, strategies could change. I don't know. But if Europe is suddenly in a situation where we don't have access to frontier models, then what do? We cannot be competitive that way. So the European answer to this, if they even made this connection, will probably be like madness and like, these Americans are stupid again, and now they're like taking our AI models or something. But the response should really be like, okay, it should be urgency. Let's admit that our path has been wrong. We made some wrong choices. Our bureaucracy has been way too draconian. Let's ease up as much as we can, as fast as we can. Let's really invest in just creating, like, bring together the best businesses we have. If we I'm sure we have some businesses at least that like we have ASML in Netherlands. I know they don't do frontier AI, but at least it's a big one of the few really good assets we have in the AI world. But bring out together other companies, startups, like invest a lot of euros in making innovation possible. I don't know how, I don't have the plan, but I just know that something needs to happen. And the best the European Union can probably do is to deregulate. But after that, of course, there needs to be some kind of acceleration, because innovation is also not going to happen overnight just because we deregulate. But yeah, I don't know. I just know that there should be some sense of urgency, and we should show more respect towards frontier American technology, because they have truly done great things. What Anthropic has achieved is just remarkable. What SpaceX is achieving now is remarkable, and so many other companies as well. So we should show the world that we're open-minded, and we're not just against everyone. We're not just trying to make rules for everyone. We're not just trying to fine everyone. So first embrace, and then we start building not alternatives because we want Europeans to just use something else than American or Chinese tech, but basically build new great products that for the world, not for Europe, but for the world. That's how we win. But I really, really doubt that the politicians and the bureaucrats in Brussels are even thinking about it this way. They spend more time, in my opinion, at least what I can see from the social media, they spend more time being mad and talking about all the drawbacks of AI, which of course there are, but I don't know. I'm just tired. Like, please, let's have some optimism. Let's have some belief that we can actually build the future. We can change the future, and we can also help directing the future, and not just like just looking at what others do, and then at some point be restricted and have our own economy completely like killed. Like how, like, yeah, again, how can we be competitive in a world of AGI perhaps in a few years if we don't have any frontier AI, and if we don't even have access to the frontier models? I'm not saying it's gonna get to that point where we don't have access, but it's a risk, and it's a risk we really need to take seriously, both in Europe, but I guess also in other parts of the world. But Europe is probably the biggest global example of a whole region where there's so much like potential in terms of tech, because we have so many great talents, and frankly, a lot of great smaller companies as well, but it just can't really truly scale because of all the limitations, because of all the bureaucracy from the European Union. And there are also other problems with the European Union, like censorship. I know every time I talk on YouTube about the European Union, it gets very, like, the algorithm really, really pushes it down, because I guess YouTube is also afraid of getting fined or something, but I just don't think it's a great way of like, it's not a great way to promote freedom rights that we supposedly have, freedom of speech, everything, and basically make all these rules that end up restricting the freedom rights. So in any way, let's hope for the best. I'll probably make some more videos about this topic, because it's very close to me. As like, I'm Danish. I live in Denmark, and it directly affects me as well. So I will keep you updated on this, and let's also hope that we soon get access to Fable 5 again, because I truly think this is a temporary situation. So let's hope that we get access, and let's hope that this whole dystopian idea of like geo-restricted access to various models is still, like, at least some years into the future, if it will happen at all. But yeah, fingers crossed. What do you think? Do you live in Europe? Do you live somewhere else, in America or other parts of the world? And what are your thoughts on this? Like, how will AI affect the global balance in the future? Let me know in the comments down below. Hope you enjoyed this video, and have a nice day. See you soon. Bye bye.